he stays in charge, it's going to be over his dead body that Shedeur is going to play a snap this year. As I've always said about Dillon Gabriel, I think he's a little better than Tua, built stocky like Tua, nice arm, accurate, but he ain't Shedeur. Shedeur is very special to me. If Shedeur were starting right now for the Cleveland Browns, I think they'd be the talk of the league because they did just beat the Packers because they have the #1 defense in the National Football League. If you gave Shedeur Judkins in that defense, I guarantee you he would be lighting.
Shedeur Sanders strutted into Detroit like it was just another pit stop, only to find out the Lions had turned Ford Field into a battle coliseum. Kevin Stefanski wasn't coaching. He was crafting Shedeur's obituary live on national TV. This wasn't strategy. It was straight-up public humiliation, complete with slow-motion replays for anyone who missed the disaster the first time. The Lions didn't just win. They made Shedeur question if football was still his calling or if he should have brought a resume instead of a playbook. And the craziest part, that was just the warm-up act. Stefanski must secretly enjoy torturing this man. Watching Shedeur pace that sideline looked like a kid grounded on Christmas morning, angry, helpless, and wondering how everything went so wrong. Because after Detroit steamrolled Cleveland like bubble wrap under a bulldozer, Stefanski looked over at Shedeur, glanced at Joe Flacco, and said, "Nah, I'm staying with my antique ride till the engine explodes." And explode it did. Harder than Flacco's third down passes crashing into the turf like misfired rockets. The Lions didn't just beat the Browns, they gave a full-on seminar called How to Ruin a Quarterback's Confidence 101.
Sure hope everybody enjoyed the win last week as much as possible because that victory was very short-lived. The Browns got absolutely trounced 34-10 today by the Detroit Lions in a game where Cleveland came straight down the field on the opening drive, started off 7-0, and it was all downhill and absolutely nothing from the offense. After that, Joe Flacco continued his campaign to be the absolute worst quarterback in the NFL. I mean, watching him play quarterback right now hurts my eyeballs.
With Joe Flacco as the star student, watching him try to lead the offense felt like watching someone send an email on dial-up internet, painfully slow, outdated, and doomed to fail before the message even sent. Fans didn't know whether to boo or call tech support. And through it all, Stefanski stood there like a statue carved from bad decisions, refusing to give Shedeur even one mercy snap. The irony's insane. This is the same Shedeur who's been benched, ignored, and left to collect dust like an old iPod at a garage sale. The disrespect is unreal. When Joe Flacco was out there serving turnovers like it was Thanksgiving dinner, you'd think Kevin Stefanski might finally take the Ferrari out of the garage and let Shedeur rev the engine. But nope. Instead, he doubled down on the same rusty station wagon with 3 flat tires and a missing steering wheel. It was painful to watch, a coach choosing chaos over common sense. This wasn't just a rough outing for Flacco. It was a historical reenactment of how not to play quarterback. The man looked allergic to first downs. Every throw had that "please don't break anything" energy, like someone lazily tossing luggage onto a baggage belt at the airport. Crooked, careless, and guaranteed to cause damage before it even landed. Fans weren't cheering. They were flinching. If Shedeur's whole mission was just to wait for Flacco's meltdown.
Interceptions today, a lost fumble, no touchdowns, just absolutely abysmal performance. And of course, Kevin Stefanski after the game said the Browns currently not considering making a quarterback change next week, heading into London to face the Vikings. I hope to God that changes during the week and we do get Dillon Gabriel in London next week because the Browns cannot afford any more wasted time letting 40-year-old statue Joe Flacco go back there and throw the ball to the other team. Terrible game by the Browns.
Then congratulations. Mission accomplished with fireworks. The implosion was so loud you could practically hear the offense screaming for help. And there was Shedeur stuck on the sidelines, looking like the honor roll kid forced to watch the class clown take his test for him. Even Emmanuel Acho couldn't stay quiet. He saw the train wreck forming in real time and basically begged Stefanski to unleash Shedeur already. He said what every fan was thinking. Maybe, just maybe, it's time to bench Flacco before the Cleveland offense officially becomes a charity organization. Because if the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over expecting a miracle, then Stefanski needs a therapist, not a headset. Now don't get it twisted. Nobody's calling Shedeur perfect. We all remember what Detroit did to him the first time around. They treated him like a chew toy dropped in a cage full of Rottweilers. But at least the man fights back. But seriously, how much worse could it really get than Joe Flacco's grand tour of incompetence? At least if Shedeur was out there, he'd run, scramble, do something. Maybe he'd even trip his way into a first down. But Flacco, the man stood there like a carnival target waiting to get knocked over. No movement, no awareness, just free points for Detroit. The Lions didn't even have to break a sweat. They were cashing in on free prizes all night while Cleveland's offense looked like it was playing in slow motion. Picture that locker room afterward. Helmets off, heads down, the energy sucked out of the air. Everyone sitting there knowing they just witnessed their quarterback deliver a masterclass in futility. And right beside them, Shedeur, helmet polished, gloves on, cleats gleaming, looking like he's starring in a Gatorade commercial instead of a football game. You can't tell me those players weren't glancing at Stefanski like, "Coach, you seeing this?"
If he's not a motivator, he's not a play caller, his special teams aren't good, he does not make adjustments well after the first drive, he's not an X's and O's guru, his quarterbacks don't ball out, he's the most highly penalized team that they got. What does he do well? Is it because you like him and you think he's in a Sears catalog with his beard? What does he do well? I'm just trying to figure it out. If you could put it in there for me, and I will tell you, Earl.
Because there's no way anyone in that locker room could honestly believe this was the plan. Even Emmanuel Acho looked like he was about to explode on live TV. The man basically screamed, "Put Shedeur in," before the offense files for bankruptcy. And let's be real. The way Flacco played, even a high school bench warmer could have posted that same stat line. Interceptions that looked pre-planned, drives dying faster than TikTok clips, and pocket presence shakier than a tightrope act in a hurricane. It was painful. Not football, just televised frustration. And yet, there was Stefanski, clapping, smiling, patting Flacco on the back like he'd just thrown a game winner instead of another giveaway. Acho wasn't pleading to save Shedeur's career, he was begging to save our sanity. Because if Stefanski sits Shedeur again while Flacco keeps turning footballs into collector's items for defenders, Cleveland might as well stop selling game tickets and start marketing comedy shows. This isn't competition anymore. It's a circus in helmets. This isn't football anymore. It's sketch comedy with a scoreboard. And the wildest part? Stefanski has no problem throwing Shedeur under the bus whenever it suits his script. Need a scapegoat? Shedeur, you're up. Need someone quiet to sit on the bench while Flacco throws ducks into double coverage? Perfect. That's Shedeur again. It's insanity, and fans can see it clear as day. Everybody can, except the one man wearing the headset with the power to change it.
A lot of the media personnel, man, they are upset with Kevin Stefanski because he won't move on from Joe Flacco, and the Cleveland Browns fan base deserves better. Now, I've told you guys plenty of times that this is not about bashing Joe Flacco or Dylan Gabriel. Dylan Gabriel needs an opportunity as well, but the Cleveland Browns' best quarterback on that roster right now, me personally, and a lot of people's opinions, is Shadur Sanders.
By the time that final whistle blew, the game wasn't even about the score anymore. Detroit didn't just beat Cleveland, they bulldozed them into next week. The real story was Stefanski's stubborn, almost artistic commitment to turning Joe Flacco into the poster child for offensive futility. And there's poor Shedeur Sanders, sitting on the bench like an unopened Christmas gift, shiny, promising, and collecting dust under the tree while everyone else unwraps disappointment. If stubbornness had a Hall of Fame, Stefanski's bust would be front and center. Here's the brutal truth. Coaches make bad calls all the time, but this wasn't a bad call. This was football malpractice.
Mistaken that. My love for Shedeur Sanders is bigger than Shedeur, is deeper than Shedeur. It's about us, family. Let's just be real. You guys see that. It's about us, man. Shedeur, you need to say something. No more cute words. No more like 4 days ago when you had that viral press conference where you referenced the quarterback play in the NFL sucks and you probably could play for those teams as well. And bro, you sugarcoating things too much. You are your daddy's son, and that's the issue. We love Coach Prime, Coach Prime is so gifted, they couldn't ignore Coach Prime the way they ignored you. Meaning that Deion Sanders' very first game in the NFL, his very first touch on the football, he took one to the house.
Watching Flacco try to escape Detroit's pass rush was like watching a tortoise attempt to cross a freeway. You wanted to look away, but the chaos was too mesmerizing to miss. Every drop back was a horror movie rerun, incomplete pass, interception, or some tragic remix of both. Yet Stefanski stood there on the sideline, nodding like he had Tom Brady under center instead of a quarterback running on expired Wi-Fi. Meanwhile, Shedeur sat there like $1 million insurance policy no one ever plans to cash in. Fully dressed, taped up, helmet in hand, ready for war, and his biggest workout came from pacing the sidelines. His Fitbit probably logged more steps in frustration than he would have gotten from an actual drive. And through all that madness, Emmanuel Acho was the only adult in the room, the only one willing to say what everyone else was too scared to admit. Shedeur might still be raw, but there's no possible way he could be worse than whatever Flacco just put on display. It's not even a debate anymore. It's a cry for help from anyone forced to watch that offensive disaster unfold again and again. And that's where the comedy really kicks in, because while Emmanuel Acho was dropping logic like a professional therapist, Kevin Stefanski was living in a whole different alternate universe.
You cannot make this up, including Joe Flacco saying, it's my fault throwing these interceptions. You cannot make that up. So as you can see, the Cleveland Browns is on the downfall. Yes, they're on the downfall as they pulled off a win last week against the Green Bay Packers, knowing that was a fluke, and Green Bay Packers basically beat themselves, basically giving the win to the Cleveland Browns. And yes, coming into this week's game on the road in Detroit, of course they got their ass blown out. You cannot make this up. As you can see, Joe Flacco is not performing at a high level. As you can see, he's flat-footed. He can't move at all. His balls are not in a good spot.
Maybe he thought Joe Flacco was suddenly going to rediscover his 2012 Super Bowl magic. Maybe he assumed the Lions' defense would clock out early, grab a snack, and call it a night. Or maybe, just maybe, he looked at Shadur Sanders and thought, that can't be real, but it must be a hologram. Whatever his reasoning was, it sure wasn't football logic. It was fantasy football minus the fantasy points. Even the Lions looked confused out there. They blitzed, they pressured, they devoured Flacco like it was a team lunch. But between plays, you could see the defensive linemen glancing at the Browns sideline, almost asking, this is your plan? Every incomplete pass came with a collective groan. Every interception felt like deja vu. And every time Stefanski sent Flacco back out there, you could hear hope physically leaving the stadium like air escaping a balloon. This wasn't a football game anymore. It was purgatory on turf, a slow-motion tragedy disguised as strategy. And here's where it gets downright cruel. Stefanski knows what Shedeur can do. He's seen the flashes, the mobility, the quick trigger, the fearless instinct to make something happen when everything collapses. He's seen it all. Yet he refuses to roll the dice, acting like sticking with Flacco is somehow the safe option. Safe?
Man, they took another defeat against the Detroit Lions, 34-10. And a lot of the people in Cleveland and the fans are calling for Kevin Stefanski's job since he's not moving on from Joe Flacco. Guys, man, I'm here to tell you, man, them Cleveland Brown fans, man, they've had it up to here with Kevin Stefanski, and they had it up to here with Joe Flacco, man. Joe Flacco today against the Detroit Lions had another pedestrian game, and the Cleveland media and the Cleveland fan base is calling for Kevin Stefanski's job because he's not moving on from Joe Flacco, and he refuses to play the two rookie quarterbacks in Dylan Gabriel and Shedeur.
That safe plan was sabotage in disguise. It was like hiding behind a locked door while the house burns and calling it security. That's exactly why Acho's commentary hit so hard, because he wasn't just suggesting Shedeur deserved a shot. He said it while Flacco was actively imploding on live television. It was like standing next to a burning house and calmly saying, hey, maybe call the fire department? Except in this version, Stefanski just shrugged, pulled out a marshmallow, and started roasting it over the flames.
What difference does it make? He already Shedeur won the two damn competitions that existed and you still didn't care. You just want to go with Dylan, and it's not because. It is not because, Dylan, is the preference for Stefanski. It is because the culture in Cleveland doesn't support a black franchise QB long term at the number one spot, drafted number one or drafted 144. They thought they could pigeonhole him there, which was ridiculous, which means they don't know talent and they don't give a.
The man turned disaster into a camping trip while the entire city of Cleveland watched their offense go up in smoke. When you zoom out, this whole Cleveland saga doesn't even feel like football anymore. It's a reality show with shoulder pads. Episode 1, Shedeur gets violated by Detroit. Episode 2, Stefanski benches him for Flacco. Episode 3, Flacco implodes against those same Lions. Episode 4, Acho publicly begs for Shedeur to play, and Stefanski still refuses. At this rate, episode 5's gonna be Stefanski tries to re-sign a retired quarterback just to avoid giving Shedeur a snap. You can't make this stuff up. But let's talk about that refusal, because it wasn't just a coaching decision, it was a statement, a loud, blaring message that screamed, "I'd rather sink with Joe Flacco than even try to rise with Shedeur Sanders." That's not leadership. That's straight up ego management. Stefanski isn't protecting the team, he's protecting his pride. It's like watching a captain refuse to abandon ship while everyone else is already swimming to shore. And the saddest part, Shedeur doesn't even get the chance to silence his critics. The man's chained to the bench while Stefanski keeps handing the wheel to a quarterback who drives the offense straight off a cliff.
Congratulations to the Detroit Lions. Family, let's keep it a buck. The Cleveland Browns embarrassed themselves against the Detroit Lions, and I ain't surprised one bit. Listen, see, this organization here has been showing us who they are.
Every week that passes, the story changes. It's no longer Shedeur needs to earn his shot. It's Stefanski's terrified of what happens if Shedeur actually gets it, because once the kid plays well, that ego-driven narrative collapses, and Stefanski knows it. Meanwhile, Emmanuel Acho has basically turned into Shedeur's unofficial PR agent. The man's on TV pleading for common sense, practically auditioning as Shedeur's hype man. And he's not even exaggerating. He knows Shedeur isn't perfect. He knows Detroit made him look like a rookie lost in rush hour traffic without a helmet, but that's part of the process. Every great player takes a few hits before they take over the league. You can't grow if you never touch the field. And yet Stefanski sits there stone-faced, ignoring logic, ignoring momentum, ignoring his locker room's body language. So here we are, Cleveland fans begging for change, Shedeur exiled on the bench, Flacco playing like the NFL's unofficial charity program, and Stefanski doubling down on decisions that would get most coaches fired before halftime. It's tragic, it's frustrating, and somehow it's still hilarious, because you couldn't write a better comedy if you tried. A young quarterback begging for snaps, an aging vet begging for mercy, and a head coach begging for someone, anyone, to still believe he knows what he's doing. At this point, the whole saga doesn't even feel like football anymore. It's turned into a full-blown episode of absurdist theater, and somehow, Joe Flacco keeps getting his encore. The man could throw 3 interceptions, trip over his own shoelaces, and still fumble the Gatorade cooler. And Stefanski would still hand him the ball like nothing happened. It's loyalty at its dumbest, the kind that makes no sense but somehow keeps happening week after week. It's like watching someone in 2025 refuse to upgrade from a Nokia flip phone because it still makes calls. Sure, technically it works, but come on, you look ridiculous using it. That's exactly how Stefanski looks clinging to Flacco, stubbornly outdated while pretending it's strategy. Meanwhile, Shadur Sanders has become the NFL's most overqualified spectator. You can practically see the frustration boiling behind that face mask. A young quarterback watching his potential rust away while being forced to cheer for mediocrity. Every player dreams of proving people wrong, but Shedeur can't even get the chance to prove people right. Every week, he's trapped in Stefanski's weird experiment.
Your daddy's son, say something. No more of this cute stuff, bro, because your career is in danger. I've seen this story multiple times with so many serviceable brothers who can play at the helm of quarterback and be the leader of teams. I've seen so much great quarterbacks who got ignored with this Cleveland Brown tactics that they're doing to you, Shedeur. We've seen this move, bro. I'm older than you, Shedeur.
Where the coach would rather keep gambling on Flacco's faded glory than invest in Shedeur's future. It's not just questionable, it's pure comedy gold. And in the middle of this football circus, Emmanuel Acho's standing there like the only sane person left in the building. His defense of Shedeur isn't blind hype, it's common sense disguised as bold analysis. He knows Shedeur isn't perfect, but he also knows that Shedeur represents possibility, energy, growth, the unknown that could actually turn into something special. Flacco, on the other hand, represents decay, the end of the road, the ghost of a quarterback who once mattered but doesn't anymore. If you're choosing between a kid who might shock the world and a vet who keeps shocking fans with how bad it's gotten, the choice should be easy. But not for Stefanski, no. He keeps doing what he does best, ignoring reality with confidence. And the funniest part, he puts so much effort into making the disaster look deliberate. He stands on that sideline, arms folded, headset on, pretending he's masterminding some genius long-term plan. But in truth, it's like watching a guy proudly steer a ship straight into an iceberg while insisting, "Don't worry, I've got the map." The man's got conviction, just not a clue.
Trail 34-10 at the 2-minute warning against the Detroit Lions. This has been a game to forget from all facets of the team, Frank. The defense held its own. The special teams gave up a punt return touchdown. The offense, once again, anemic. I remember 2 years ago we were talking about, could Joe Flacco play a game and not throw for 300 yards? Is that possible? The dude wakes up and has a 300-yard game. Now to get 200 yards from Flacco seems darn near impossible. To break the 10-point threshold from an offensive standpoint seems impossible. There were some drops. The offensive line wasn't perfect. Flacco made some mistakes.
Everyone else is screaming, "Turn the wheel!" But there's Stefanski, standing there calm as ever, nodding like the sinking ship is all part of his master plan. The Browns are going down fast, and he's just checking the clock like it's on schedule. And poor Shedeur, the guy can't catch a break. Every headline that should be about his potential ends up being about Stefanski's refusal. Every conversation that should be about what Shedeur could bring turns into one about what he's being denied. At some point, you've got to ask, who's really doing the damage here? Detroit's defense for making him look bad that one game, or Stefanski's own stubbornness for making sure he never gets to look at all? Week after week, game after game, the Browns keep running the same tragic comedy routine. Fans groan, Acho pleads, Shedeur waits, Flacco flails, and Stefanski stands there smiling like he's directing a masterpiece instead of a meltdown. It's tragic, it's absurd, it's hilarious. A full-blown satire that somehow got televised on Sundays. If this wasn't happening in real life, you'd swear it was an SNL sketch about football dysfunction. But it's real, and it's unraveling right in front of millions of fans who can't decide whether to laugh or cry. So until someone in Cleveland finally decides to change the script, make sure you like, subscribe, and share this madness, because we're not done yet. See you on the next one, where hopefully, just maybe, Shadur Sanders finally gets his moment to shine.